And welcome to Five Rings Daily, PyeongChang 2018 an Olympic podcast. It's day 3, and joining us, Duane, Rollins, and myself, Kevin Laramee, joining us to talk about the first weekend of the Olympics, but with more of an American perspective, our good friend Bo Duer. Bo, how you doing today?
I am fine. It doesn't really seem like winter outside. It seems like a bad spring, very just kind of chilly and rainy and all that. And of course, I was just in Orlando, which didn't feel like winter at all. But I've really enjoyed what I've seen so far.
Well, it seems like winter up here. I can trade you. I can send you the snow if you want, Bo. Yeah, we've had a really, really heavy snowfall this winter. Bo, before we get into getting your highlights of the first weekend, just curious what your thoughts were on that biathlon. I know you're a big biathlon guy. That first result on the men's side in biathlon, that was pretty surprising, eh?
For Cod to win?
Well, for the two main guys not to be on the podium.
Well, I mean, that's biathlon. I mean, biathlon is the sort of thing where you can you have a bad day with the gun, or if you don't feel all that well. I mean, there's certainly just a margin of the margin for error there is really thin, and it's pretty easy. I mean, pretty easy to take yourself in or out of it. I mean, you look at when Lowell Bailey won the first ever world championship for a U.S. man last year. It's because he shot cleanly, and those are small targets. You're talking just an inch to the left and a minute added to your time. You're not even on the podium. So that's the nature of the sport, and so it can be unpredictable like that. It is. You may have on any given race about 10 different people who can win, and maybe 2 of them will win, maybe someone will be a surprise, and then the other 8 will be scattered anywhere in the top 30. So I'm not too surprised.
Fair enough. What I've read is it's a tough shooting course. Can you actually give us a bit of an overview of what the athletes are thinking about the course that they're racing on in PyeongChang?
No, no, I really can't. I don't know. I mean, we do know that when we think PyeongChang now, we think wind, because that's what set all the Alpine events and really messed with the schedule. So wind is also the enemy of a man or a woman with a gun who's already got enough to think about. So I don't know if that's a factor, or if it's hard to say what else can affect the shooting course. I mean, perhaps sometimes just visibility can be a little different. They are running a lot of these at night, but I think they're used to that from Europe as well. So I don't know. I think I do see the shooting numbers are a little bit scattered. There aren't that many people shooting cleanly. Furcade won the pursuit with just one penalty, but he's Furcade. He's a machine.
Speaking of machines, the first weekend is wrapping up. Day 3 just finished a few moments ago. With an American perspective, Bo, which medal, which moment, which performance caught your attention to start off those Winter Games?
Well, I think you'd have to say that U.S. snowboarding is in fine shape, as it always is. Jamie Anderson repeating her slopestyle gold, and then yet another kid. The man they call Red, the man, he's what, 17, 18?
17, yes.
Red Gerard.
Going to turn 18 not too far from now, but yeah, 17 for now.
Right. He looks like any random kid, down at the high school down the street, and he just won an Olympic gold. So I think that's from an American perspective, that is certainly that's certainly what's caught a lot of attention.
Now, in the next few days, what is getting you excited? And we've talked about how you like biathlon, but outside of biathlon, what does excite you in the Winter Games as well? Which sport really makes you set your alarm at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., depending on the case of the sport? But which one gets you going?
I don't know if I'll necessarily be awake to see it, but they've got to get the alpine skiing going at some point. And we really want to see how, you have 2 phenomenal U.S. women who have the potential claim to be the best ever. And, Lindsey Vonn, who is, at the tail end of her career, but just was tearing up the World Cup coming into the Olympics. And then Michaela Schifrin, who's still pretty young, but has just dominated the slalom like few we've ever seen in the last probably 5 years. So I think that people are anxious to see them, and that's an event where the weather plays a role. I mean, figure skating, you know what you're getting into. You know that it's pretty unlikely the event's going to be postponed or canceled or delayed or anything like that. Alpine events, that's tough, and I wonder if it'll work to the disadvantage of someone particularly like Michaela Schifrin, who does have a fairly busy Olympic program, if things keep getting pushed back into the second week of the games.
Getting delays in the Alpine program is it wouldn't be a Winter Olympics if we didn't have delays in the Alpine program, it seems. But
right.
Bo, I'm wondering, this to me is maybe historically the weakest U.S. figure skating team I've ever seen in terms of top to bottom strength. There's really not a ton of there's really no gold medal favorites there. There's a couple maybe medal possibilities, but do you think that the historical weakness of the U.S. Figure skating team across the board, do you think that's affecting interest in the games in the United States? Because figure skating really is just like gymnastics on the summer side. It's a lot of the attention usually in these games.
I think there's still a lot of people paying attention. I did a live blog last night for The Guardian, and I was told that it was doing very well. I was getting a lot of good feedback on that, and people were certainly paying attention. And because they'll pay attention not just the Americans, they'll pay attention to the Canadians did very, very well across the board. And also, I think he may be underselling the Americans a bit. Nathan Chen didn't show it in the short program in the team event, but if he goes out to that long program and lands all the quads that he's talking about, the way figure skating is judged these days, if he goes out and lands all those quads, he wins gold, just flat out. I mean, numerically. And so that's a very good chance. Ice dancing, I don't know. Frankly, I know I'll offend most of Canada by saying this. I enjoyed the Shibutani's program last night more than I enjoyed Virtue and War, but it was close. They're very good. Where the U.S. is weakest right now is on the women's side, where they have. But then again, Mirai Nagasu just went out and stomped it in the team event and looked like someone who could maybe make a medal. And look, they took bronze in the team event. That is not something to, that's a nice accomplishment. And it was an inspiring one. You had Adam Rippon, who is believed to be the first, this is such an odd statement, believed to be the first openly gay U.S. Winter Olympian. I mean, there have been several we found out about after the fact, such as Johnny Weir, who's now a great commentator for NBC. But he broke a barrier last night, and he didn't just do that. He did it very, very well. He skated, well enough to win a gold medal in the men's event over Patrick Chan? No, but well enough to hold his own in the team event and help the U.S. win bronze? Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, they are a little bit down on the women's side. They have 3 medal contending ice dancing teams. They've never been particularly good in pairs, although they also held their own in the team event. And so, yeah, I don't think people are that disappointed with the state of the team right now.
Fair enough. All right, Bill, before we get into, typically, as you may know, we do our gold, silver, bronze, and wood medals each day on the game. So we'll get you to give those in a minute. But before we do that, just what beyond the American stories, and we all understand what they might be, beyond the American stories right now, what is grabbing people's attention in the United States with these games? Well, what is the prevailing international story right now?
I don't know that a lot of people are necessarily paying attention to it, but I think you have to look at what the Dutch are doing in speed skating again. I mean, it's not new, but just to come in and you think at some point there would be some regression to the mean. We're still early in the Olympics, but so far it certainly doesn't look that way. They're as dominant as always. And I think eventually we'll get into things will really pick up a bit when we get into ice hockey. I think certainly there's, of course, on the women's side, the expectation is that'll be USA, Canada. The men's side, I think, to some extent, it's more intriguing when there are no NHL players in it. I think a lot of people are still disappointed in that, but I think it means that it's more wide open, and we really don't know what to expect. We're going to have, we're going to see, will the Olympic athletes from Russia and other teams that are built mostly on KHL players just roll over everybody, or will we see, some of the teams that have these lesser known people, some of them playing in the AHL, will they be able to come in and hold their own? So I think to some extent people are just still waiting to see everything right now feels like an appetizer to what's to come. The team event in figure skating, I think, as interesting as it was, I know people really want to see there's always a sense that people are holding back just a little bit in that, especially when, Canada last night, Virtue and War take the ice and they already know Canada's won the gold. They don't have to do anything spectacular. They're still very good, but there's a sense that they could do better down the road. So I think we're still in a little bit of a holding pattern right now. And honestly, in the U.S., it's snowboarding ahoy.
Now, Bo, I know you've been following the Olympic movements and different Olympic games for a long time, especially winter ones. And this Winter Olympic Games, it's kind of a return to cold environment, yes, but a return to a winter as well resort. With the conditions that have been difficult in certain events like snowboard slopestyle and other events as well, like the halfpipe last night, which the women in the United States did very well in the qualification. Are you surprised? Are you kind of happy with this winter game being in winter, or what are your thoughts on the venues and the actual infrastructures that we've seen so far?
I think the venues look terrific. I think, again, you may second guess a little bit. Well, how long do these Siberian winds continue whipping through the Alpine venues? But I think, it does get back a little bit. But then again, you go. I've also seen people say when they show an exterior shot of, say, Gangneung Ice Arena where they're having figure skating and short track, and they say, well, where's the snow? So to some extent, it's typical in that sense where, the arena venues are not as cold, and the mountain venues of course are considerably colder. I mean, when I remember the Olympics, when we went to the Olympics in Vancouver, USA Today used to give us big ski jackets to go walk around. I still have my son has now claimed my ski jacket from either Torino or from Torino, and for Vancouver they gave us all thin fleeces because it was supposed to be so much warmer. Of course, I was up in the mountains. I needed more than that fleece to get around. But yeah, I think to some extent it's a little fun. Maybe it's a little bit too much in places. But look, people know to bundle up. That's fine. It is the most curious thing is the ceremonies, because the ceremonies usually are in sort of the lowland stadium. I mean, I went to the opening ceremony in Salt Lake City, and it was cold, but not as cold as it was farther up in the mountains in Park City and so forth. To have the opening ceremony in such a cold venue, that was interesting, and it would be interesting for the closing. And of course, you wonder what to do with stadiums at this point for Winter Olympics anyway, because they aren't. In the Summer Olympics, your main stadium is used for track and field, probably the men's soccer final, maybe even something else. In the Winter Olympics, they're used for the ceremonies only, and then they have no use for it after that. So that's a bit of an issue that I think the IOC is going to have to address at some point.
Now, a brand, it's not a new, it's a tradition, but now it's become a third Olympic game tradition. Our gold, silver, bronze, wood medal, and Bo, you have the honors. What is your wood medal? And for new listeners, wood medal is the moment that we are not necessarily proud of the day, or a moment that we disagree with, something not worthy of actual metal. So what is your wood medal?
My wood metallic metal shaped object would go to U.S. speed skating. They flopped in Sochi. And so far, they're flopping again. I watched this morning as Brittany Bowe. Brittany Bowe actually had a decent race. I mean, fifth in the Olympics is nothing to sneeze at. Heather Bergsma went out very, very fast, and then barely made it around the track for her last lap. I mean, obviously your pacing was way off, and it's a real pity when someone like Bergsma, who has been probably the best skater at 1,500 and 1,000 meters in the world over the last, let's say, 6-7 years, based on this form, it looks like she's going to finish her career without an Olympic medal, which would be a real shame. And Shani Davis has made headlines for pouting at. Well, first of all, he got on his plane to South Korea. He got in the wrong seat, and then fussed at the guy who told him that fussed at the guy who said, no, you're in my seat. And then he pouts again when there's a tie vote for who should bring the U.S. flag into the opening ceremony between him and Aaron Hamlin, and they flip a coin and go to Hamlin, and Davis pouts about that. So they don't look good right now. Something good has to happen for them at some point. Again, I'd love to see a data scientist explain how all these bad things keep happening in U.S. speed skating. So we'll see. Still time to go, but right now, yeah, they get wood.
And your bronze medal for day 3.
Bronze medal, a big surprise for the U.S. Chris Madser, not someone who had a lot of great results coming in. U.S. men had never medaled in luge, and he just goes out and tears it up. And he was 4th after day 1, came in with a fantastic 3rd run, and did enough in the 4th run. And he had a fan base there. People. We know it's cold there, but the people weren't dressed like it was cold, wearing tank tops and so forth with colorful stars and stripes on them, and holding up big pictures of Chris. And so that was quite fun to see. A surprise. Obviously a very popular guy. So good bronze medal performance. It was a silver medal performance for him, but in this competition, we'll give him the bronze.
I'm sure they were fine, because there's a certain tradition at luge and at sliding tracks, especially for luge, that usually you're not sober. Usually you had a few, and usually it's kind of the strong stuff that you drink, like the warm, strong stuff, like mulled wine or like hot whiskey. So yeah, you're not cold. You can wear nothing and you'll be fine. Now that brings us to your silver medal for the day, Bo.
Silver medal at this point would go to North American snowboarders, because we're 2 events down. That's 2 U.S. gold and 3 Canadian medals, including Mark McMorris, of course, the great comeback story, taking bronze in the slopestyle. We mentioned Red Gerard, and Jamie Anderson comes in and does it again, her 2nd straight slopestyle gold. So, yeah, what can you say about them? They simply, if a U.S. or Canadian snowboarder is at the start in the start house, it's time to watch. It's looking that way for the half pipe as well. Chloe Kim set the 2 best runs in qualifying. Of course, it's scary to think she's in some respects a literal millennial, because she was born in 2000. Would have competed in Sochi if she weren't so young. And coming in and competing where she has family in South Korea. She is Korean American, and no sign of pressure right now. Doing very well, and so U.S. and Canadian snowboarders, they can. We're friendly neighbors. They can share the silver.
And this brings us to the big moment, the long-awaited moment, to talk about the most precious metal of them all, gold.
Well, perhaps I'm just catering to your audience, but I'm giving my gold to the Canadian figure skating team. They were a joy to watch. Aside from the fact that you can just look at the numbers and see just how much better they were than everybody else in this competition, it was just fun to watch. I know Patrick Chan didn't have his best skate, but still you could admire his artistry and the athleticism he brings. And your ice dance team, Virtue and More, yes, very, very good, and just a good team spirit. In to some respect, we're not expecting Canada necessarily to go out and sweep the golds in the individual events. I mean, you look at women's figure skating, Russia looks very, very good. I mean, they they know how to work the judging system. I mean, not in a bad way. They just know, hey, let's put all our jumps in the second half of the program and get the bonuses. I mean, they have it down pat, and they're going to be very tough to beat. But in that team event, I thought it was a wonderful moment for that team, and really a wonderful moment for Canada. Certainly a team to be proud of.
Bo, thank you very much for your time today. Bo will be back with us around 11 a.m. for our Soccer Today special. We're going to talk about the USSF election and all the drama that took place this weekend, especially on social media. But we'll be back with Bo at 11 a.m. We'll be right back after the break to talk about our own medals of the day. You like what we do? Patreon.com/sportspodcast network. This show is listener supported, and with your help, we can continue to be the leading voice of Olympic podcasts out there. We are the longest running Olympic podcast, established since 2014, and with your help, we will continue Olympics through Olympics to plow through the daily noise of the Olympics to get you what you need to hear. Now, Duane, we're back. We're going to talk about our own medals of the day. But before we do so, I'm wondering this question. It's an existential... It's a very important question. Did you figure out the schedule yet? Were you able to rest a little bit?
I did get a little more sleep last night, so I'm a little more refreshed today than I have been otherwise. But I think it's just going to get worse from here. Really, for the next 2 weeks, I guess, it's about 2 weeks now. Well, yeah. I guess 13 days from now, it's really just going to be a blur of watching and thinking and sleeping when I can. Sleep in shifts. We only need 8 hours a day, maybe 6 hours. We can probably get to do a 6. If we do 2 hour naps or 3 2-hour naps a day, we're fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Fine. Yeah, we should be fine. We should be fine. Let's talk about fine. Let's talk about great. Let's talk about toughness in a level that I cannot even comprehend. And we're talking about our Poutine Medal for day 3, the 5th Poutine Medal, because we actually gave them for day -1 and day 0 because there was competition and we were there to cover it. So if you want to go back in the history of the show, just go on YouTube, youtube.com/sportspodcast network, or iTunes, or anywhere you get your podcast, and get your 5 Rings podcast of the day you want to hear to get our thoughts in the Poutine Medal. But the 5th ever Poutine Medal, Duane, goes to Marc-Antoine Gagnon. Qualified for the final. It was difficult. It wasn't like Philippe Marquis, which, yes, we'll talk about this after maybe honorable mention. He was the first ever Poutine Medal. Philippe Marquis doing Moguls without an ACL, and it was a bit difficult in the final. And an impact after the first jump made him unable to finish his run. And cheers, keep on fighting to you, Philippe Marquis. But Marc-Antoine Gagnon did not qualify earlier on to the final. He had to take the long route, had to go through the draft process to get a spot in the finals, and from there he qualified from the top 20 to the top 12 to top 6, and he was the first one to execute himself, and until the last one he was in medal contention. A surprise 4th spot for Marc-Antoine Gagnon. All eyes were on Michael the King Kingsbury and Philippe Marquis because of the injury. No one was talking about Marc-Antoine Gagnon. And a surprising performance, 4th, unexpectedly, with the run of his life in the final run into the super final. And it was amazing to watch, and he was very close to a podium spot, and good job, Marc-Antoine.
No, well, and look, I talked about this yesterday, how grueling that Moguls format is, and to have to also include that sort of go through a qualifying run first, it's unfathomable that he could have done that 4 runs, and that's crazy. Like it's just not something that really the human body is designed to ever do, and to get 4th place, and we talked about this a couple times already, how like I think we do a disservice when we sort of dismiss, we talk about 4th place being, that's the worst place to finish. But you know what? 4th in the world maybe they should give them a medal. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's. I guess you have to cut it off somewhere, right? But
Yeah.
it's a remarkable performance for someone that we weren't talking about, and so demanding, and something to enjoy, and great.
And
It was a great performance, as I
we're
said.
talking about that final. The conditions were terrible. The wind was very high. And on top of it, I know wind is not that influential into the result of a jump or in the moguls itself, because the jump are only 2 feet high and you don't get necessarily the amount of air necessary for the wind to become a big factor, but it's a mental factor. On top of that hill, you see the wind scrape off the top of those moguls. You're like, yeah. First of all, you see the size of those moguls, Wayne, which are by the way, the moguls in the 2018 PyeongChang course are the biggest of the season encountered by the riders. So it's the biggest moguls of the season. So if you are not as skilled to get around those moguls, and we've seen a lot of crashes. We've seen a lot more crashes than I was expecting in this mogul finals, and hard ones. Like when Philippe Marquis, he was trying to brake, he was already off the course. He slipped and crashed and hit the top of that mogul really hard, and it happened to the Korean skier that made it to the top 12 too, and a few other riders. Like the 12 best in the world had difficulty just staying upright, never mind landing their jumps, never mind finishing in a decent time. It was it's so unforgiving. That's what I was thinking, Duane. I was watching it. I was like, you're like one tip away catching the top of a mogul or the side of it from making the best run of your life to crashing and hitting your face on the top of one of those moguls and not even being able to finish the course. The margin of error between glory and disaster is incredibly small.
What they do is incredible. I mean, they make it look easy, right? But anyone who's ever skied a moguls course, if you and I, Kevin, if we go skiing a moguls course, we're gonna go from one side of the hill all the way over to the other side of the hill, all the way over. We're gonna go down in some weaving motion, and they basically just go straight down that hill. What they do is it's not incomprehensible to those of us who've skied, right? And they make it look simple, and that course is really hard, and that's why they reward and why turning is such a big part of the scoring system. I mean, if you're just you've never done the sport, you may go, well, why are they giving so many points for turning? It's because that's the essence of what you're doing there. You're trying to carve your way through those bumps. You're not trying to get air off them. You'll fall if you do that. So you're trying to get down there. It's really incredible what they do.
And as soon as you miss one, it's like a domino effect too, because if you miss one, then you're not going to be aligned correctly for the second, and you get that second jump, and then you get, so yeah, you do get the knees close to the bottom of your chin, and sometimes they actually connect and it hurts, and we've seen this happen a few times, and it was a great moment. All right, let's move to a not so great moment, and let's start with you today, Duane. Your wood medal for day number 3.
Look, you can't control weather, and we've seen a lot of problems with the wind this past weekend, and certainly they've made the right decision in many cases to postpone events or to combine finals into combine the qualifying into the finals to have a 2-run final and stuff like that. Those were the right decisions. But last night, and I think it was to do with pressure, scheduling pressure, they decided to run the women's slopestyle event, and it was not fair. The conditions changed from run to run. There were women that went down that course that simply were skiing into winds that were faster than they weighed. You know what I mean? They weighed 70 kilos and the wind was 75, right? So
that
it just was not a fair.
Like the Japanese, the 17-year-old Japanese rider that's 84 pounds. Yeah. It was difficult.
Yeah, it just wasn't conditions that they could even display anything, and it showed. I mean, they weren't able to really put down a performance that would excite people about their sport. That would say, oh wow, they're incredible, and they are incredible. But the conditions just made it impossible, and the fact that the biggest competition of their 4-year cycle had to go down in those conditions was just unfortunate. The women that won it, full measure, they fought through it, and I think the women on the podium are amongst the top in the world, certainly, but it wasn't a fair representation of their sport, and it's unfortunate. And I get the scheduling concerns. I get why they tried to force it down, but sometimes I think you have to go, okay, we'll figure this out and can run this on a day when the wind is not such a factor as it would have been yesterday. So that's my wood medal of the day.
My wood medal is something that was brewing. It's something that has become a tradition, and it's not biannual, because I mean twice a year. How do you say something that happens once every 2 years? Anyways, Now, it's now a tradition for the Olympic Games to not give medals right after, not like at the venue, but to wait and give a little gift and prolong the wait for the actual medal later on in a different venue because they sell tickets for the other venue. And to me, the teddy bear ceremony and the medal ceremony is a joke. Takes all the fun out of it. I just won the damn competition. Don't give me a teddy bear. Give me my medal. Give me my goddamn medal. I'm here right now. My anthem needs to be played, first of all. They don't even play the anthem. They just give teddy bear, woohoo, yay, everyone's happy. No, I'm not happy. I want my anthem, and I want my goddamn medal. What's the deal with me waiting like 10 hours for it? And that is a shame, and that is a cash grab made to sell tickets for another venues, to see just people raise medals and be happy and hear national anthems. What a shame. What if you're someone who knows someone and you're there, you're watching an athlete and you know them and they win something and you now have your damn ticket to go see the ceremony and you don't see that moment? It's a damn shame. And that moment of raising the flag, well, I know it doesn't raise the flag all the time, but of the anthem playing and you giving your medal should be included. You should be wearing what you just, you should be have the sweat on your face still from the effort you made. You should be still out of breath. And you get your medal, and you soak it in, you embrace it. And I feel the athletes are robbed of a bit of that moment when the ceremony is held later on in the day.
I think that started in Vancouver. They actually in Vancouver, it was a free event. You just had to get in there, and it was sort of their way to give the Olympics to just the average person that may not have been able to afford tickets to get into the event. And I like that idea. But now, as you say, they use it it's ticketed. It was ticketed even here in Toronto for the Pan Am Games. You couldn't watch the medal ceremonies unless you bought something to get in. It wasn't an expensive ticket, but it was still a ticket. So yeah, it does seem like it's a bit cynical now. What started out as a nice gesture to include the whole city and have that celebration. And it was, in Vancouver, those ceremonies were very nice because the Canadians were doing very well, and it was a civic pride kind of moment, and people were there, and it was free, like I said. But yeah, now it just seems like it's just another way to monetize these games. And we get that they have to pay the bills, but at the same time, maybe we need to back off that a little bit. Kevin, all right, shall we move into the positives?
Let's move into the positive. Duane, your bronze medal for day number 3.
I'm going to give it as a universal bronze medal, although I'll give Merritt Lumbee a tip of the hat as well to the women's ski jumping. If we were flashback to 4 years ago, and 6 years ago or so, when the women were basically suing their federation and suing the IOC for inclusion to get into the games, a lot of the arguments were that they just simply weren't, the arguments that were being held against them is that the depth of field wasn't strong enough, that they didn't feel that it was worthy of an Olympic designation to put women's ski jump into the Olympics because whatever, they just didn't think that the field was deep enough. Well, today they put a show on. The last 10 jumpers all were going down that hill with such pizzazz, and just they were pushing the boundaries and going further and further and further, and they really just demonstrated how absurd that idea was, that women could not ski jump. The Ski Jumping Federation has to be made up of the most old-fashioned dudes that I could put. Yeah,
that's 2 days in a row we're bashing ski jump, but it's fine. They deserve it. Wake up. Smell 2018, please.
I know, and look, they still. This is the only women's event of the competition. The men have, big hill and a small hill, and the team competition. Allowed. The women just get the small hill. Like, why?
Because they say it's not. They say it wouldn't be safe. It's a shame. It's terrible. Oh, you say it wouldn't be safe? Ask those ladies. Well, sorry, I don't. Even me, when I say, I don't mean to say ladies, and I apologize for it. And when I see ladies 500 meters or ladies, no, it's women. Come on. We have to call it what it called. The women's ski jump, I agree with you, and they are patronizing. And even up until 2012, there's a great movie, I forget the top of the name, but it's on Netflix, you can watch it. A great movie about the perils of women's ski jump and what it took. And even for the K9, they were like, no, it's not going to be safe for women. You don't weigh enough. You don't... Whatever. Those are just obstacles, mind barriers that are not real. It's not true. It's the same. The sport will evolve. At the beginning, they're going to struggle. It's not going to be the best, and it's not going to look the same because it's not the same. And you're absolutely right, Duane. I agree with you 100%. Those women made a great show at the ski jump, at the Alpine Ski Jump Center, and I wish they had the K120, and I wish they were treated as equal. I wish they had the Nordic combined as well, because ski jump is a part of that, as a component to it. But I truly wish you were right. I truly, truly wish they were respected the way they should be.
Yeah, it's absurd. The Olympic movement does not have a great history when it comes to equality, and they are trying to fix it at some level. But you still have this old-fashioned idea that you have to protect the ladies, right? And it's just anyway, shake your head and move on, I guess. But at least they had their moment today, and they seized it. It was a great competition. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, go at least watch the final few jumps. As I said, they were pushing that boundary right to the last jumper, and it was a very good competition, and it just demonstrated how absurd the Ski Jumping Federation's position on women in the Olympics was for so long. All right, Kevin, yours?
My bronze medal for day number 3 goes to a Netherlands speed skater. Shocking! They won again. 1,500 meters woman. Irene Wust now has become the most decorated woman in the history of Winter Olympics. With 5 golds and 10 medals overall, she has now she was already a legend. She became an immortal today with this great victory at the 1,500 meters. And Irene Wust, which it's not even her most favorite distance, she's probably going to win more medals for sure in teams with the Netherlands. She's going to win more medals in the rest of those games and continue on her legacy. But her performance today, yes, it was kind of expected. That's why it's maybe not higher in my rankings today. But her performance for a gold, 5th gold medal, 10 total medals, is largely enough for my bronze. And if it was on any other given day, she might have gotten something else. But today, she's getting my bronze.
All right, I'm gonna save my thoughts for her for a little bit later on. If you follow
I
that,
figured
so
that exactly.
All right, I'm going to jump to my silver. My silver is Patrick Chan, the Canadian figure skater, the silver medalist from the last Olympics in the individual event, silver medalist in the team event, and now an Olympic gold medalist. He was the skater that basically all but clinched it for Canada heading in. I did the math before the start of the team competition. Patrick Chan basically stayed within 2 positions of the Olympic athletes from Russia. Canada was pretty much guaranteed for gold based on the fact that Tessa and Scott were likely going to win their competition as they did. He went down and he didn't have a perfect performance by any means, but he had an artistic performance, a performance which gave him the full 10 points in the team competition. Once that result was there, it was done. Everyone knew that Canada was winning a gold medal. And now Patrick Chan, who has been kind of a punchline in this country for years because he does have a tendency to not really perform at his best, even though he's an Olympic silver medalist.
Exactly.
When the chip
second in the world ain't too bad.
Yeah, I know. But it's a meme, right? Like people, Patrick Chan always falls. Well, you know what? He's an Olympic champion now, so he can basically tell people to shove it. He has an Olympic gold medal. So my silver goes to Patrick Chan for his gold.
He can say, "What? I can't hear you. I have 1 silver and a gold medal plugging my ears."
That's a Patrice. That's a Roy reference there, right?
Yeah, that was in 1996 when he says, no, in 1998 or so, whatever. He's like, "Yes, I know what you're talking, but I can't hear you because I have a 2 Stanley Cup plugging my ears."
Yep, Patrick Waugh. Anyway, great goalie. But anyway, go ahead, Kevin. Where are you going from here?
My silver medal for the day is a silver medal for Canada, and one that truly shows sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you crash hard in practice. In training session, Laurie Duane in snowboard slopestyle crashed really hard. She was stretchered off the course. Went to the hospital. Needed to be checked at, lack of a better term for myself, because of lack of sleep. But she needed to be given the go-ahead by the medical team, and she was. And yes, the actual qualification process for the slopestyle snowboard for the woman was delayed by a day due to weather, and that delay gave her the chance, because she would have, the day of the qualification, she wasn't cleared. She was cleared for training, but not for competing. She got cleared the next day, and weather gave her an opportunity. And when you're served with an opportunity on a silver platter, you have to go for it, Duane. And she went for it. She kept a kind of conservative run at the end, but still, with her body bruised, her face bruise, as you can see on the video feed right now, which you can always listen to live at youtube.com/sports podcast network. You see her face, black eye and everything. She won that silver medal in difficult condition. And yes, it was so difficult that some riders were an unexpected result. She is the defending World Cup and World Championship world champion. So her result, second, is not a fluke. Great performance, especially considering the hard crash in training. Duane, my silver medal for day 3.
All right, my gold was first. Simply, a great skater that's done it for 2 Olympics in a row now. When you see her name pop up, you know that you have to watch. Like Bo said earlier when he was talking about the Canadian and the American snowboarders, right? So the first is one of the incredible legends of the sport with a Dutch team that is doing things that are historical. I cannot remember in any Olympics a individual team sport that has been so dominated by one country in the way that the Dutch are dominating speed skating. And we'll say it again and again and again throughout these games. It's just an incredible thing to watch, an incredible thing to see. And it's like basically like who's playing for second, who's playing for third, who's playing for fourth sometimes. You almost want to give medals to the rest of the world. The Japanese woman got a bronze medal. And it's like, oh, you get the rest of the world gold today, right? Like it's, yeah.
Duane, you know why though?
That way.
It must be all those skatings on canal going to work. It must be all those skating to get around, according to Katie Couric of the NBC broadcast live on.
Oh yeah, that was God, that's cringeworthy at any rate. Fake news hashtag. But that's my gold medal. Real quick, Kevin, before I popped in my head that we should probably talk about Mikkel Kingsbury.
Well, I got my gold left.
Okay, go.
My gold is an ex aequo. I couldn't separate those two, because it's one thing to win something when you're kind of expected but not necessarily favorite, and we knew Canada had a very strong team. We knew they were one of the gold medal favorites for figure skating team, and they got the job done, so I want them to have a part of that medal. But watching Mikkel Kingsbury with a field that was closest to him as we expected, but pull off a massive run in his last run of the day in the super final when it was only 6 other guys. 86.63. The closest one was the Australian Matt Graham with 82.59, and that's the one who has a big mouth because he said, "Oh, Kingsbury's beatable. Yeah, I can beat him. My friend, you're 4 points away, and 4 points away might as well be an eternity because you won't catch the king. He's the king. Triple crown, won everything possible, and won this one while having the expectations and the pressure of everyone and not skiing his best up until his last run. A few difficult bubbles and the landings were not easy. He adjusted his run, mentally was ready, and like he said before he started going down those moguls and that hill, come on, baby. Well, Kingsbury, you're the king.
Precisely. And look, for many Olympics, it's always been kind of this worry that in Canada anyway, that our world champions, that people that had that sort of level would come to these games and not perform. That guy, that meme, that sort of cliche is dead. Like, he absolutely dropped it. He was the class of that field. He is the class of that sport, and he deserves all the recognition that he's going to get today. Kevin, we got to go because we have to do a show in about 15-20 minutes. Kevin's got to sit up for it. So I'm going to say goodbye. Kevin, as always, wrap the show up.
As you can see on the screen, we have the medal standings after day 3 quickly. Top 10, Germany first, Netherlands, Norway, Canada, United States, France, Sweden, Austria, Republic of Korea, and Japan wraps up the top 10 in the medal standings. You can listen to us every day during the Olympic Games at 10 a.m. on youtube.com/sports podcasting network, on demand as podcasts anywhere you get your podcasts, or on the website sportpodcastingnetwork.com. As always, you can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. Until tomorrow, have a great Olympics.